Caleb Morgan had lived his whole life on the wide land that stretched between the river and the mountains. Anyone who knew him in town spoke of him with the same words: quiet, hard-working, and surprisingly gentle for a man who owned more land than most families could imagine. He had money, yes, but he never behaved like someone rich. He wore simple clothes, worked with his own hands, and treated people with fairness. That was the reason everyone trusted him. But even with all the respect he earned, Caleb lived alone in a large house built for a family he had never formed. He often told himself he was fine with the quiet. The land kept him busy. The cattle needed care, the horses needed training, and the ranch hands needed guidance. Still, as the years passed, he felt something missing every evening when he returned to his silent home. He watched other men in town walk with their wives, laugh around dinner tables, or play with children. Calmly, without saying it aloud, Caleb began to want a partner, someone who would walk beside him, someone who would share the land and the life he worked so hard for. One cold season, a traveling matchmaker visited the area. He came with letters, photos, names, and stories of women looking for real partners. Caleb listened quietly at first, not sure whether he should speak. But the matchmaker saw something in him that many others rarely noticed: the deep loneliness behind his calm eyes. When asked what kind of woman he wished for, Caleb answered carefully. He said he did not want someone who cared only about his money. He did not want someone who disliked ranch life, or someone who acted proud. He wanted someone honest, someone who understood hard work, someone kind. The matchmaker nodded and told him he might have someone in mind. "She's different," the man warned. "Very different. But if your heart is steady, she might be the one." Caleb asked what he meant, but the matchmaker only said he would return in a few weeks. During that time, Caleb tried not to think too much. But late at night, when the wind blew across the empty fields, he wondered what kind of woman the matchmaker had found. When the matchmaker finally returned, he did not bring a photo or a long letter. Instead, he simply said, "She will meet you at the trading post. Her name is Nala Greyhawk." Caleb saddled his horse at sunrise and rode into town. He expected a simple meeting with a quiet woman looking for a calm life. What he saw instead made him stop completely. Nala was not just different, she was unlike anyone he had ever seen. She stood near the corner of the trading place, taller than almost every person around her. Her shoulders were broad, her arms strong, and her steps slow and careful, as if she knew people were watching. Her long dark hair fell down her back, and her eyes, though shy, shined with a mix of fear and hope. She looked like someone who had lived through storms most people never faced. The townspeople stared, whispering words she likely heard 100 times before. But what caught Caleb was not her height or her size. It was the way she kept her hands folded tightly, as if trying to make herself smaller, invisible, unnoticed. She did not stand like someone powerful. She stood like someone who expected to be rejected. When the matchmaker introduced her, Nala lowered her head and spoke with a quiet voice. She said she had come from a mountain tribe far away. Her parents had passed, and she had survived mostly alone. She did not think any man would ever want her as a wife. People had always been either frightened of her or unkind. No one had ever looked at her with true interest, and certainly not with respect. Caleb listened to every word. He did not interrupt. When she finally looked up, she saw something she had never seen before: a man who did not judge her. He did not step back. He did not stare as if she was strange. He simply nodded gently and said he was glad she came. Nala was confused. Men usually kept their distance. Even women whispered when she walked past. She wondered if Caleb could not see her size clearly, or if he was pretending. But the longer he spoke, the more she realized he was not acting. He asked about her life, her skills, and what she hoped for. She explained she knew how to hunt, build shelters, carry heavy loads, and work long hours. She had lived through hard winters and learned to protect herself. But she also admitted she feared she was too different for a normal home or a normal marriage. Caleb surprised her by saying he valued strength. He said that a ranch required a strong heart more than anything. He said he only wished for kindness and honesty, and he already saw those things in her. His words touched something deep inside her, something she had kept hidden for years, her hope for a place where she belonged. Even then, Nala hesitated. She felt too large for the small spaces of towns, too strong for the delicate things other women did, too unsure of her own worth. She did not know if she could stand beside a man like Caleb, who seemed so calm and respected. But she also knew she had no place to return to. Her tribe had moved, and she had been left with almost nothing. Hunger, loneliness, and the cold truth of surviving alone made her willing to at least listen. Caleb invited her to walk with him away from the busy road. He wanted to talk where people would not stare. She followed slowly, still looking down, still unsure. He told her about his ranch, how large it was, how peaceful the mornings could be, how the horses behaved, how the cattle moved across the land like a river of life. He said he worked hard every day and never asked anyone to do something he would not do himself. As he spoke, Nala felt something strange, a gentle calmness. She had never been around a man who talked to her like an equal. Caleb asked questions without pushing. He explained things without making her feel small. For someone so strong, she had experienced very little kindness in her life. And now here was a man offering it freely. Not because he wanted anything, but because it was his nature. When she asked why he would choose someone like her, Caleb answered honestly. He said he wanted a partner who understood real life, not someone who cared about showing off. He said he had seen enough of prideful people in town. He wanted someone honest and brave, someone who would stand beside him. Nala's strength, instead of frightening him, impressed him. Caleb finally asked if she would be willing to visit the ranch and see if she liked it. He did not ask her to make decisions quickly. He simply asked her to walk a little of the road with him and see if their paths could join. Nala nodded slowly. She was still unsure, still nervous, but something inside her whispered that she could trust him. As they prepared to leave the trading post together, a few people whispered again, surprised to see the tall mountain woman walking beside the calm, wealthy cowboy. But Caleb never looked at them. He only looked at Nala to make sure she felt safe. For the first time in many years, Nala felt her steps becoming lighter. She did not know what waited for her on the long road to the ranch. She did not know if she could live the life Caleb described. But she did know one thing. She no longer felt completely alone. And that small change gave her the courage to take the first step with him. Caleb and Nala began their journey the next morning. Long before the sun touched the tops of the cottonwood trees, the air was cool, and the sky carried a soft, gray light that slowly brightened as they walked. Caleb walked beside his horse instead of sitting on it, because he did not want Nala to feel that he was riding while she had to walk. His choice surprised her, but she kept her thoughts quiet, watching the steady movements of the cowboy she barely knew. The road stretched ahead like a long ribbon, passing between fields, old fences, and quiet stretches of land where only the wind moved. Several times Nala glanced around, feeling the eyes of strangers lingering on her. Her sighs always brought whispers, but that morning she also carried a new feeling, an uncomfortable fear that Caleb might change his mind after spending more time with her. She kept her hands folded tightly, her shoulders drawn in, as if she hoped to shrink herself. Caleb noticed her worry. He slowed his steps until they matched hers perfectly. He talked about simple things at first, the weather, the land, the coming spring. His voice was calm, steady, and without pressure. Nala listened, but spoke very little, unsure of what to say. She was not used to someone wanting to hear her thoughts. As the hours passed, the road led them into quieter country, where trees grew tall and the fields opened wide. Caleb began telling stories of his ranch, the stubborn horse that always found a way to escape the corral, the young calf that needed help learning to walk, the ranch hand who sang loudly in the mornings even when no one asked him to. Nala found herself smiling a little at some of the stories. She had lived most of her life in silence, hearing little laughter, so his warm voice felt almost unreal. Eventually, she began to share small pieces of her own past. She talked about growing up in the mountains, where the air was thin and cold even in summer. She spoke of her parents teaching her how to track animals, build shelters, and stay safe in harsh weather. But when she reached the harder parts, losing her family, wandering alone, her voice softened and slowed. Caleb listened quietly, not interrupting, not pressing her to continue. His respect toward her words slowly untangled a knot inside her heart that had been tight for years. After a long while, she asked him why he had chosen someone like her when he could have picked any woman from town. Caleb stopped walking for a moment and looked at her with steady eyes. He told her that many women in town wanted a comfortable life but did not want to work for it. Some cared too much about appearances. Some cared too much about money. But Nala, he said, had lived a life full of strength and truth. She understood hardship. She did not pretend. He admired her honesty more than anything else. Nala did not know how to answer. No one had ever spoken about her in such a way. She felt heat rise in her chest, not embarrassment, but a deep, unfamiliar warmth. She walked quietly for a long time, trying to understand why this man's simple words affected her so deeply. Around midday, they stopped near a stream. Caleb let his horse drink, while Nala stretched her back. She noticed him watching her with concern. "Are you tired?" he asked softly. She shook her head, though the truth was she had been walking for hours. Caleb did not believe her. He moved to a fallen log and patted it gently, asking her to sit. Nala hesitated at first. She had broken wooden benches before, and she did not want to embarrass herself. But Caleb saw her hesitation and reassured her that the log was strong and solid. Slowly she sat down, surprised that it held her weight easily. Caleb took out some bread and dried fruit, offering it to her. She accepted with careful hands, feeling a strange mixture of hunger and gratitude. In her old life, she had often eaten alone, hiding from people's stares. But now, sharing food with Caleb near the quiet stream, she felt something different, something close to comfort. When they finished their meal, Caleb showed her the map of the land. He pointed toward the mountains and explained where his ranch was. The trail they needed to take was narrow and curved between old cliffs and rocks. Nala listened closely, imagining each part of the land he described. She liked how he explained everything with patience, as if he had all the time in the world for her questions. They began walking again. And slowly, the land changed. The open fields grew smaller. Trees grew closer together. The sun moved higher, casting soft shadows across the path. Birds chirped from branches overhead, and once or twice, a rabbit darted across the road. Nala began to feel a small sense of calm. She had expected Caleb to walk ahead or ride away on his horse, leaving her behind. Instead, he stayed beside her the entire time. Every time the ground became uneven or slippery, Caleb extended a hand toward her, ready to help. She often did not take it, feeling embarrassed, but she noticed that he never pulled his hand back quickly. He simply waited. By early afternoon, they reached the beginning of the narrow trail Caleb had spoken about. It was a steep path that wound between tall, rocky walls on both sides. The trail looked tight, uneven, and unfamiliar. Nala stopped immediately. Her breath grew heavier. Her steps froze. Caleb turned around, confused at first, until he saw the fear in her eyes. She was a strong woman, stronger than any person he had ever met, but strength did not remove fear. She stared at the narrow passage as if it were a trap. "You want me to go there?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with uncertainty. The path reminded her of old mountain trails she had taken during storms, trails where one wrong step could lead to danger. She was not afraid of the land, she was afraid of failing in front of someone she barely knew. Caleb stepped toward her, slow and gentle. He knew she did not like sudden movements from others. He reached out his hand, not grabbing, not pulling, simply offering. "You're safe with me," he said quietly. Nala looked at his hand, then at his face. His eyes did not show impatience or pressure. They only showed calm trust. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. The moment she did, Caleb tightened his hold just slightly, enough to let her know he would not let her fall. They walked together into the narrow trail. Nala stayed close, keeping her steps careful. Caleb explained where the rocks were loose, where she should step, and where the ground was strongest. His voice guided her like a soft light in a dark tunnel. At one point, the path grew even tighter, and Nala pressed her back against the rocky wall, feeling panic rise again. Caleb noticed immediately. He moved in front of her, blocking the view of the steep drop beside the trail. "Just look at me," he said softly. She did. And somehow, looking at him made her feel steadier. She followed his steps closely, trusting him more with every movement. When they finally reached the end of the narrow trail and stepped onto open land again, Nala let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Caleb looked at her with a small smile. "You did well," he said. Nala wanted to answer but found no words. Her chest felt tight, not from fear now, but from something else. Gratitude, relief, and a strange connection to the man who had guided her so patiently. They continued walking side by side. The land opened wider ahead, and the sky stretched above them like a soft blue blanket. Nala felt the wind brush her face, carrying the scent of pine and clean air. She felt lighter now, as if a part of her fear had stayed behind on that narrow trail. As the sun began to lower in the sky, she realized something important. Caleb was not just taking her to his ranch. He was taking her toward a life she had never dared to imagine. A life where someone stood beside her. A life where she did not have to hide her strength or her size. A life where she might finally belong. And though she did not fully understand it yet, the first step into that narrow trail guided by Caleb's warm hand was also the first step into a future she never thought possible. When Caleb and Nala finally stepped off the narrow trail, the land opened up like a gentle welcome. Wide fields stretched far ahead, soft hills rolled into the distance, and a long wooden fence marked the beginning of Caleb's ranch. The sun hung low, coloring the sky in warm shades of orange and soft gold. Nala paused, staring at the land that seemed endless. She had never seen a place this wide and peaceful. In the mountains where she grew up, everything was steep, rocky, and narrow. Here, the land looked calm, almost inviting. Caleb watched her reaction carefully. He wanted her to feel that she belonged here. He told her softly that this land had been in his family for generations. His father and grandfather had worked on it, and he had grown up learning every corner of it. But even though he had lived here all his life, he liked seeing it through her eyes. Her quiet amazement made the land feel new to him again. As they walked closer to the ranch buildings, Nala noticed a few ranch hands riding horses and checking fences. They looked strong, experienced, and busy. For a moment, her old fear returned. She worried they would stare at her, whisper about her size, or look down on her for being different. She instinctively lowered her head like she used to do when passing through towns. But before she could step back, Caleb walked a little closer to her, as if silently telling her she did not need to hide. When the ranch hands noticed Caleb approaching, they guided their horses over and greeted him respectfully. Caleb introduced Nala, without hesitation, saying she was a guest and should be treated with the same respect everyone else received. The ranch hands nodded, offering polite smiles and simple greetings. They did not stare too long, nor did they whisper. They went back to their work, treating her presence as normal. This surprised Nala. She had expected judgment, But instead, she found quiet acceptance. As they reached the main house, Nala slowed her steps. The house was large, made of strong wooden beams, with a long porch and windows that reflected the setting sun. It looked warm and lived in, not fancy or decorated. Caleb explained that he kept the house simple because he believed in comfort, not show. He opened the door for her and guided her inside. The home smelled like fresh wood, warm meals, and clean air. A large fireplace sat in the living room, and sturdy furniture filled the space. Everything was well kept and carefully arranged. Nala walked around quietly, afraid to touch anything. She had never been inside a house this big. In the mountains, she had lived in small shelters, caves, or simple huts made from branches. This place felt unreal to her, almost too good to be real. Caleb noticed her hesitation. He told her she could sit anywhere she wanted. She glanced at a wooden chair but stepped back quickly. She was afraid she might break it. She knew she was heavier than most people, and she had broken furniture before. Caleb saw the worry in her eyes. Without saying a word, he tested the chair himself, pressing down on it with his hand. Then he nodded and told her it was strong enough. When she still hesitated, Caleb sat in the chair himself, then stood again, showing her it was sturdy. Nala finally sat down, moving slowly, and was relieved when the chair held her perfectly. Caleb smiled gently, and she felt a small sense of pride. As the evening went on, Caleb prepared a simple meal. He cooked without rushing, explaining what he was doing as he worked. Nala offered to help, but he told her she had already walked a long journey and should rest. She watched him move around the kitchen with quiet confidence. It felt strange and comforting at the same time. No one had ever cooked for her before. They ate together at the wooden table. Caleb asked her questions about her favorite foods, her daily habits, her comfort level with ranch chores. She answered honestly, still speaking with a gentle, uncertain tone. She told him she was used to physical work. She could carry heavy things, climb steep slopes, or walk long distances, but she had never worked on a ranch. She did not know how to care for cattle or train horses. Caleb nodded and said he would teach her everything slowly. He reminded her that no one was born knowing how to do ranch work. Everyone learns step by step. Hearing those words made Nala relax a little more. She was not expected to be perfect. She was only expected to try. After dinner, Caleb showed her the guest room where she would sleep. The bed was large, covered with thick blankets. She looked at the bed with both gratitude and disbelief. She had never owned a real bed. Caleb saw her staring and explained that the bed had a strong frame and thick support because he sometimes hosted travelers who were large or carried heavy gear. Nala nodded, though her heart felt full in a way she could not explain. Before leaving her to rest, Caleb offered her a lantern and told her he would be nearby if she needed anything. Nala thanked him softly. When he left the room, she sat on the bed for a long time, feeling the softness beneath her and the strange new comfort that came with it. For years, she had slept on cold ground, rough blankets, or makeshift bedding. This warmth and safety almost brought tears to her eyes, but she brushed them away quickly. She did not want to seem weak. The next morning, Nala woke to the smell of breakfast and the sound of ranch life beginning. Horses whinnied, tools clinked, and men spoke in low voices as they prepared for the day. She stepped outside, unsure if she should wait or join. Caleb saw her at the door and waved her over. He invited her to walk with him around the ranch. She followed as he showed her the barns, the cattle areas, the storage sheds, and the horse stalls. The ranch hands greeted her politely, though some stole curious glances. But their faces showed interest, not judgment. When one worker needed help lifting heavy sacks of feed, Nala stepped forward and helped without being asked. She picked up the sack as if it weighed nothing. The men stared in surprise, then nodded with respect. Caleb watched the scene quietly, a small smile forming on his lips. Throughout the day, Nala helped where she could. She carried buckets, repaired small fencing, and cleared fallen branches near the corral. She worked with quiet focus, and the ranch hands quickly learned she wasn't someone to make fun of, she was someone to admire. Her strength was useful, her manners were humble, and her presence made difficult tasks easier. Caleb stayed close, guiding her gently. He corrected her when needed, praised her when she did well, and made sure she did not push herself too hard. She watched him closely, learning from his calm manner. He was a leader without shouting, a teacher without pride, and a man who earned respect simply by being kind. In the afternoon, Caleb asked her to come with him to a quiet field behind the ranch. The grass there swayed gently in the wind, and the hill offered a clear view of the entire valley. Nala followed, wondering why he had brought her there. When they reached the top of the hill, Caleb stopped and looked out at the land. "This is my favorite place," he said softly. "I come here when I need to think." Nala listened, unsure if she should speak. Caleb then said something she did not expect. He told her he had never brought anyone else to that spot before. Not friends, not workers, not anyone. He wanted her to see it because he felt she would understand its quiet beauty. Nala stood still, overwhelmed. She looked at the valley below the long fences, the moving cattle, the distant river, and the warm sky. She felt a deep peace settle inside her. She did not know why Caleb had chosen to share this moment with her, but she felt honored. As they stood side by side, a soft wind brushed against them. Nala realized she was no longer just a visitor. She was beginning to feel something she had not felt in years, a connection, a sense that she could stay, work, and possibly belong. And though she did not say it aloud, she knew one thing clearly now. Caleb had not brought her here to judge her. He had brought her here to show her that she had a place in his world, a place that might one day become her own. The days that followed settled into a quiet rhythm that Nala had never experienced before. Each morning, she woke early, hearing the gentle sounds of ranch life outside her window. Each day, she stepped out into the soft morning light, still unsure of her place but slowly growing more confident. The ranch hands greeted her with calm respect. The horses learned her scent and no longer shied away when she approached. Even the cattle seemed to move more quietly around her, as if they sensed she meant no harm. Caleb kept his promise to teach her everything slowly. Some mornings, he would show her how to check the fences for weak spots. Other days, he would guide her through simple tasks like preparing feed or watching over the younger calves. She was not perfect at everything, but her determination made the work feel natural over time. And more than anything, she appreciated how Caleb never rushed her. He never made her feel clumsy or inexperienced. Instead, he celebrated every little improvement she made. Nala began to look forward to the evenings most of all. After long hours of work, Caleb often found a quiet moment to walk with her around the ranch. Sometimes they shared stories. Sometimes they simply walked in silence, enjoying the soft glow of the sunset. These peaceful moments slowly became the center of her day, something she never admitted aloud, but felt deeply. Despite all this slow-growing comfort, Nala still carried fear inside her. She wondered why Caleb was being so good to her. She wondered if she was only a temporary guest and would eventually be asked to leave. Even though Caleb had never said or done anything to make her think that way, her past experiences made it difficult for her to trust a life that felt too kind, too gentle, too warm. One evening, after a long day repairing fencing, Nala was sitting on the porch when Caleb approached her. He leaned against the wooden railing and looked out at the quiet valley. The sky glowed with orange and pink, the kind of sunset that painted everything in soft colors. Nala glanced at him and then looked away quickly, feeling shy for reasons she didn't fully understand. Caleb started speaking, his voice calm. He told her that the ranch felt different since she arrived. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a quiet, peaceful way. He said the place felt more alive. The workers were more cheerful, the animals were calmer. Even he found himself waking up each morning with a lighter heart. Nala's fingers tightened around the wooden porch rail. She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever told her she brought something positive into their life. Usually people spoke about her size, her strength, her unusual presence, but never about any gentle or warm effect she had on the world. Caleb slowly turned toward her. He said that he had been thinking a lot. Thinking about the future. Thinking about what kind of life he wanted. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized he wanted to share his life with someone who understood him. Someone honest and loyal. Someone who could build a real life with him, whether the days were easy or hard. Nala felt her heart pounding. She kept her eyes on the ground, afraid to meet his gaze. Then Caleb said something she never expected. He asked her if she wanted to stay, not as a visitor, not as a helper, but as family. As someone who belonged there. As someone who belonged with him. Nala froze. She had imagined many possibilities in the past weeks, but she had never dared to imagine this. The idea that a respected, calm, wealthy cowboy like Caleb would want her as a partner felt too unreal. She felt both warm and frightened at the same time. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. She asked him softly if he was sure. She asked why he would choose someone like her. Caleb stepped closer, his expression gentle. He said he wanted someone strong, someone honest, someone who understood pain and could still choose kindness. He said Nala was all of those things. He told her that she made the ranch feel complete in a way he had never felt before. And then, quietly, he said her strength did not scare him. It inspired him. Nala looked up slowly, surprised by the sincerity in his eyes. She had been judged her whole life, but Caleb's gaze held no judgment at all. Only warmth, only trust, only hope. Even so, she hesitated. Old fears whispered inside her mind. She worried she would not fit into his world. She worried she would disappoint him. She worried that one day he might regret choosing someone so different. Caleb noticed her fear. Without saying a word, he reached out his hand the same way he had done on the narrow trail when she was too frightened to move. She stared at his hand, remembering how his steady warmth had guided her forward then. Slowly, carefully, she placed her hand in his. Caleb squeezed her hand gently and told her she did not have to be afraid. He said he was not choosing her because she was perfect. He was choosing her because she was real. As those words sank into her heart, Nala felt something shift inside her. It was as if a weight she had carried for years suddenly became lighter. She took a slow breath and nodded with a quiet, unsure smile. She told him she wanted to stay. She told him she wanted to try. She told him she hoped she could make his life better, just as he made hers. Caleb's smile grew warm and bright, and for the first time, Nala felt like she had stepped into a life she was truly meant to have. The next days passed in a blur of gentle excitement. The ranch hands noticed something changing between Caleb and Nala, though they did not ask questions. They simply smiled more often and treated Nala like someone who belonged. The animals reacted kindly to her, sensing her calm but strong spirit. Even the land itself seemed to welcome her, with warm breezes and bright mornings. One afternoon, Caleb guided Nala back to the high field behind the ranch, the very same place where he had once taken her to show her the valley. They walked side by side, their steps steady, their silence comfortable. When they reached the top of the hill, the valley spread out before them, painted with soft colors by the late afternoon sun. Nala remembered how she had felt the first time she stood there. Afraid, unsure, overwhelmed. Now she felt something entirely different. Peace, hope, and a growing sense of belonging. Caleb turned to her and asked her another question, one deeper than the first. He asked if she would walk through life with him, not just as a partner, but as his wife, as someone who shared his home, his dreams, his struggles, and his joys. The question struck Nala like a soft but powerful wave. She had never believed marriage was something she would ever experience. Not with her size, not with her hard past, not with how people usually reacted to her. But Caleb was not like anyone else. He saw her differently. He treated her differently. He gave her a life she had never imagined. Nala felt tears gather in her eyes, something she rarely allowed. She held them back, but her voice trembled with emotion when she said yes. She told him she would walk beside him. She told him she would stand with him in storms and in sunlight. She told him she hoped to give as much love as she received. Caleb reached for her hand once again, holding it with the same steady gentleness he had shown all along. They stood on the hill, watching the valley glow beneath the warm sky. And in that moment, both of them understood that their lives had changed forever. That night, the ranch felt alive with quiet celebration. The ranch hands clapped Caleb on the back, smiling warmly. Nala received soft congratulations and warm nods, each one helping her believe a little more that she truly belonged. Weeks later, Nala and Caleb stood together on the same narrow trail where she had once frozen with fear. This time, she walked first, not because she needed to prove anything, but because she trusted him. Caleb followed, smiling proudly as she stepped forward with steady courage. When they reached the end of the trail, Nala turned toward him with a warm smile. Caleb took her hand once more, their fingers interlocking naturally. The fear that once lived in her heart had faded. In its place grew something stronger: love, trust, and a quiet confidence that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Their life together began not in grand moments, but in simple steps, gentle words, and honest hearts. And from that day on, the ranch was no longer just Caleb's home. It was theirs.